Is there any truth to the rumors that shape-shifting lizards conspired against the American people and brought down the Twin Towers on September 11th? That is the claim of David Icke. And if you're not familiar with his work, you should be. And I'm going to introduce it to you now. This is going to be a deep dive into the book, Alice in Wonderland, The World Trade Center Disaster by David Icke. And it's a book that gets laughed off by many people because of the ultimate premise that there's royal bloodlines of shapeshifters that control entire governments and orchestrated 9/11. But if you think that sounds crazy, let's get into what's beyond that crazy idea. I'd like to introduce you now to a deep dive book series. At least we're going to try this out to see how it goes. These deep dive book series are a kind of a little gray area because we will be reading large portions of a book, of which publishers always say only small portions of the book can be used without express consent, and on and on and on. First of all, I recommend that you get a copy of the book that we're going to be discussing today, which is Alice in Wonderland and the World Trade Center Disaster. I'll put that on screen here in a second. We're going to talk about it more deeply. This is a discussion. It's like a book club. It's like a book club. I'm going to give you my thoughts. I've got a million thoughts of what sounds on the surface like a crazy idea. But I'm telling you, sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, and a lot of this is not at all fiction. It's something you should take seriously. So I want to share with you now my love affair, if you will, with conspiracy theories, 9/11. And this is just some of the 9/11 conspiracy theory by one man's view. And so keep that in mind. It's not the definitive answer on 9/11, nor is it the definitive answer of how I think and view things, but it does fit with the Devil's Advocates Beyond channel that looks beyond the cases to something that's a little bit different, paranormal, extraordinary, whatever you want to call it. So the book that we have here is Alice in Wonderland, World Trade Center Disaster. I like to keep these videos at about 45 minutes to an hour, so it's going to be a little lengthy, but this is something you can put on while you're driving or whatever. You don't need to have a visual, even though I will show you the book and I'll be reading large passages from it and discussing it. And again, please buy the book if you want to read along. I recommend you do so to give credit and money to the author who put the time into it. Whether or not you agree with all of his ideas or not, you should get a copy of the book. And to the publisher, if you find that this is some egregious violation and is not covered under fair use, even though I will be transforming it quite a bit, please let me know and we'll just take it down. All right. So here we go. Alice in Wonderland, the World Trade Center Disaster. Why the official story of 9/11 is a monumental lie by David Icke. And David Icke gets a lot. He was a legitimate journalist / turned crazy conspiracy theory, according to many people. I don't think he was as crazy as people think. And that's what I want to share with you today is I don't think he's as crazy as people think. All right, so here we go. We're going to get into it right now. This was published in 2002, World Trade Center Disaster, September 11, 2001. So right after, about a year after, this book comes out. And he had been doing lots and lots of books. In fact, there's a whole list of his books in here that you can look at. So he kind of pulled from a lot of information. That's why he can come out so quickly with it. A monumental look at 9/11 from a different perspective. So I'm going to hide. And so here, by the way, here just real quick is a list of his books. Look at all these books that were already, in his repertoire, if you will, by 2002. And he's continued to write after that, and then DVDs and so on. Now I'm going to read again. I'm going to read all these comments and when I change colors, by the way, it's to remind me that I have a new thought coming to remind myself that maybe I'm shifting gears. All right. The first quote from the book in the beginning, before we even get started, is, "The plan is to engineer events, real and staged, that will create enormous fear in the countdown years to 2012. This includes a plan to start a third world war, either by stimulating the Muslim world into a holy war against the West or by using the Chinese to cause global conflict, maybe both." And that was a prediction written by David Icke in the biggest secret 1998. And again, 2012 was after this book was written. And so he kind of predicted that we were moving towards a major, major thing in 2012. So you might say, well, let's discredit the book right now because it's past 2012. Nothing major happened. A lot of people thought the Mayan calendar that ended in 2012 was going to usher in the end of the world or cataclysmic stuff, or maybe secret societies knew about the prediction of 2012 and were moving us towards some big agenda. And maybe he thought that, and maybe he was wrong about that, but that doesn't mean you should dismiss what's in this book. Some stunning shit is coming out. Really, honestly, there's going to be some like, how the fuck is that a thing moments in this book. Talking about Powell. So this is General Powell he got the Secretary of State position under Bush and Cheney. Powell, like the Bushes and Cheney, is bloodline. And that's why he's to be the new Secretary of State. Given that lineup and their mentality and their agenda, don't be at all surprised if the United States finds itself in another manipulated war during this administration. You will see monsters being created in the public mind to justify such an action. And that also was a prediction of David Icke in January of 2021 before the September 11th events. So David Icke suggested when he saw Bush and Cheney and Powell in certain bloodlines taking power, he said, I bet you, don't be surprised if the United States finds itself in a manipulated war. 9/11 hits, we find ourselves invading the Middle East, going to war with the entire other half of the world, it seems like. And it started with David Icke saying, hey, I bet you this is going to happen. So just take that with a grain of salt as you think about this. Did he predict those things? Was it hard to predict? Was it just conspiracy theory thinking that we're always in wars all the time, and so you can just keep saying that there's a war coming around the corner and you're right 95% of the time? It's stuff that we should consider. I like to think about all aspects, so I'm not going to blindly follow anything. Now, here's another quote. Why, of course, the people don't want war. Why should some poor slob on a farm want to risk life in a war when the best he can get out of it is to come back to his farm in one piece? Naturally, the common people don't want war, neither in Russia, nor in England, nor for that matter in Germany. That is understood. But after all, it's the leaders of the country who determine the policy, and it's always a simple matter to drag people along, whether it's a democracy or a fascist dictatorship or a parliament or a communist dictatorship. Voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to the bidding of their leaders. That is easy. All you have to do is tell them they're being attacked and denounce the peacemakers for lack of patriotism and expose the country to danger. It works the same in any country. And after 9/11, this is exactly the kind of thing that I witnessed growing up in my country, which is that after 9/11, the Osama bin Laden was demonized. The entire Middle East essentially was demonized. You were told, let's go bomb the shit out of the Middle East. And if you thought about it and said, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't, you're either for us or against us, motherfucker. You either get on board or you're not, or you're anti-American. You can get the hell out of the country. We got attacked and those people are going to pay. And that was the mentality I lived through. When I started to question 9/11, I was told more than once to get the hell out of the country, that somehow Americans thought it wasn't American for me to voice dissent or say, wait a minute, maybe I should exercise my freedom of speech to say, maybe you're not thinking this through. Get the fuck out of the country was the response to me. Oh, by the way, I've dropped in a lot of F-bombs. I do this on my other channel. I'm going to start doing it on this channel as well. When I start dropping F-bombs like I just did, I'm going to add this parental advisory, but I need to put it a little smaller because it covered up my face. There you go. Parental discretion is advised whenever you listen to my videos. And that, by the way, that quote was Hermann Göring from the Nazis, I believe. Göring, I think, was like the, wasn't he the publicist slash shaping public opinion think tank guy of the Nazi regime, I think. Now, just a theory. So again, we're just getting started with quotes. We're going to take a while to get through this book. There exists a shadowy government with its own Air Force, its own Navy, its own fundraising mechanism, and the ability to pursue its own ideas of the national interest, free from all checks and balances and free from the law itself. And that's from one of our U.S. senators, Daniel Inouye. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name, but a U.S. senator said our government has a secret Air Force, a Navy, a fundraising mechanism, all those things that is without checks and balances, which it uses for its own agenda. You should be concerned if you live in the United States and you have a senator saying that that's how our system works, that there's secret agendas and military and budgets to take care of those things. And then famous David Rockefeller. Now, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you're familiar with big names like the Rockefellers in the country and how they own and control everything, media and all this stuff. We're on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will accept the new world order. And a lot of this book is along the idea that world governments, those at the very, very top, have a plan to bring the entire world population under one world government, one world currency, because if you have everybody using the same system, you can control everyone through that system. Having diversification, as we're going to find out in this book, diversification is hard to control the populace. You want everything to be consolidated so that all one head can rule everything. So that's the new world order. The idea is to move the entire world population under one umbrella so that a very small number of people can control the entire planet. Is that crazy? Well, let's get into it. This is the table of contents, by the way, just to give you an idea of some things that are covered in this book, should we continue it. And I encourage you to let me know if this is the kind of thing you will listen to on your drives or whatever, while you're doing housework, whatever, because it's something you don't need to see. But I want to know that you're going to be invested in it so we can get through the whole book, because I'll keep doing it as long as there's interest. So here's some titles of the chapters. The real agenda behind 9/11, the Bush crime family. And by the way, I want to say this right off the bat. This book is going to have allegations by some of racism. He's going to talk about bloodlines. Certain bloodlines have immense power and keep the bloodlines pure and own everything. And if you say a certain bloodline's name, all of a sudden you quickly shift to you're a racist. The book is not about racism. In fact, it's about anti-racism. We shouldn't have a situation in which the color of your skin dictates who's the rulers of the country, or who you were born to, or who you were first cousins with, shouldn't dictate how far you go up in a company. That is racism. The book's not racist. It's pointing out the systems that propagate a racism while telling you it's not racist. Anyways, so just as a caveat. Born to be King, it's going to be about the bloodlines that feel that they are destined by divine right to rule you. Big Dick Cheney, and Big Dick's in quote for a reason. I've read that, so I know what's coming up. That'll be a fun one if we get that far. Rest of the Gang, Play It Again, Scam, Problem, Reaction, Solution. That's a model that many people in conspiracy theories are very familiar with. House of Cards, pull one card, the whole house comes down. Where were you on 9/11? I can tell you. Many of you who were alive during 9/11 can tell you. The hijackers, prior knowledge. This is the book's going to indicate that the United States government knew that 9/11 was going to happen, and they let it happen at a minimum, if not orchestrated it. Searching the Maze with Smoke and Mirrors, War on Sanity, Bin Laden did it, in quotes, and Behind the Movie. And then the Here from Eternity as well. So, that's a teaser of the kind of topics, and they're big topics, and it's not as crazy as you think. So please just give it some thought, food for thought, conversation. If you think he's off the rails on the whole bloodline thing, let me know. If you don't think there's shape-shifting lizards in the world, let me know. If you think there is, also let me know. I'm curious. I want to know where people stand. Now we're going to talk about the 5 sense perspective. That's your hearing, your touch, your smell, your taste, etc. We live in a multidimensional infinity. We are multidimensional infinity. Therefore, there are infinite perspectives from which to view the same events, and all can be different but equally true. It simply depends where the observer is standing at the time. And that's the premise of all of my thought process. It is possible that you tell me that, no, the reason why we invaded the Middle East is blah, blah, blah. You can make it very political and very nuanced, very by the book. And that may be true to some extent. But also this crazy theory may also be true. Both perspectives can be true simultaneously, depending on what lens you're looking through. Sometimes it's a bunch of things playing at one time. In this book, I'll focus for the most part on observing the shocking attacks of September 11th from within what I call the 5 sense prison. Prison. Now, this is a very spiritual concept. Your senses are a prison. We could go at length about the Buddhist philosophy and stuff like that, about how reality is not real and it's just an illusion, and you're trapped in the illusion as long as you have this prison of your mind telling you that you can sense, taste, smell, feel, and that makes you feel like you're real, but it's not real, it's an illusion. That's probably not where David Icke was totally going with it in this book. That was my own book discussion. Anyways, the world that we see, hear, touch, smell, and taste, it is from this viewpoint or point of observation that all but a few on this planet perceive life. Most of us only perceive life by what we can touch, taste, smell, hear, so on. But in the final chapter, I will observe the attacks of 9/11 from a much wider perspective, and only then can they be seen in their greater context. So he's going to take it a little bit to a spiritual or metaphysical idea, not just what you can, oh, well, I can touch this, so it must be true. And then there's some other quotes from Alice in Wonderland, Lewis Carroll. That's very, very cool. But let's just jump right into the text since I've taken 15 minutes to get us started. Through these years, there has rarely been a day in which I have not worked in some way to uncover, communicate the astonishing story of how a network of interbreeding bloodlines going back to the ancient world has expanded its control over the human population until today. A full-blown global dictatorship is within its sight and within grasp. So yes, David Icke spends a great amount of time talking about royal bloodlines, interbreeding, marrying of families to keep the bloodline pure. That does not make David Icke a racist. It does not make us a racist by talking about it. And this is not that kind of work. So for the love of God, we hope that YouTube and your little bots and stuff like that don't view this as, oh, you can't talk about that. That sounds racist. This is history from a perspective. To understand the true background to the horrors of September 11th, 2001, you have to research and understand so many subjects, many of them considered bizarre or crazy to our conditioned reality. And that's the problem. I too agree that there are topics that I can't talk about because people just like, oh my God, where the fuck did you get that from? You haven't lived my life. There's a lot of shit I know, and trying to get you to be at the same place I am immediately is almost impossible. So I do the best. And I've also learned to talk really, really, really fast, because when somebody gives me a couple of minutes, hey, all right, I'll listen to you for 5 minutes. Okay, I can get a lot out in 5 minutes. And so I've learned to talk very fast when somebody lets me talk. Be like, okay, let me try to give you the Reader's Digest version in 5 minutes. If you keep letting me talk, I'll keep going because I got a lot in here. So when people ask me why this information has never been made public before, there are three main answers. And by the way, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, David Icke, if this is true, how come no one's talking about it? Because your fucking media is controlled. Our minds are controlled by people telling you you can't even talk about these you can't even ask, hey, is that possible? Without being labeled a conspiracy theorist. They've got control of your mind. That's conspiracy theory talk right there. Who's the fuck is they? They have control of your mind. They're controlling you already. You already feel afraid to ask the question. You're ashamed to ask the question because that would label you a conspiracy theorist. And nobody wants to be a conspiracy theorist. So they've already got you not talking about the problem. So people will counter, well, if this was all true, David Icke, then why aren't people talking about it? Because you're controlled would be the answer. But his answer from here stems on a couple things we're going to focus on. Many researchers have uncovered aspects of it, even large swaths of it. But communicating what they know through the mainstream media has been impossible. Mainstream media, David Icke would argue, is controlled by the very leaders who want you to stay ignorant of it. And they will not allow their puppets in mainstream media to educate the masses about what's going on. That's not allowed. And that's what he's going to talk about. Our media is controlled. Everything's controlled. The population's controlled, pacified, then told to be afraid of asking questions. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're crazy. You're a loon, whatever. You are conditioned to take it in the... And another reason why, part C of why he does it, why the people don't talk about it, is because of the staggering amount of research over so many years that is necessary to understand the pieces even before the puzzle itself can be addressed. And yes, That's my problem. Trying to explain these concepts to somebody who has no background in it is enormous. This book's going to try to do that. I'm going to try to do that through our discussion of the book. We'll see how it goes. In my last three books on the subjects, and the titles are And the Truth Shall Set You Free, The Biggest Secret, and The Children of the Matrix, I have presented a total of 1,500 pages detailing the story of human control and how the same interbreeding bloodlines that produced the kings and queens of the ancient world now produce the presidents, prime ministers, and banking and business leaders, media owners, and military chiefs of the 21st century. And yes, he's got a lot of books and a lot of details, some of which is going to come out here for the sake of the purpose of trying to show us how 9/11 happened, that says, way back in the day, royal kings, divine kings, I'm ordained by God to be your leader, still persists today, but it's just been hidden from the masses. It's still the same bloodlines, it's still the same people, it's still the same families. But you would freak out if they said, well, we think we're ordained by God to be your ruler, except for maybe in England where you have that kind of monarchy kind of situation. But most people are kind of freaked out by the idea that you are somehow, because you were born into a certain family, divinely my master. That's offensive to modern senses. So we hide it now. Bloodlines still exist. We just don't say, God said, I'm in charge of you. Bloodlines and their divine right to rule. The families that covertly control the system that controls the people are spawned from ancient bloodlines that have a different DNA to the rest of the population. Now, this is where it gets sketchy, because some people say, oh, here we go. David Icke and his lizard shape-shifting lizards they've got different, they're from another place. And here's where it gets interesting for me. I've been a long student of the Anunnaki, the ancient Near Eastern religious texts that talk about beings that came from another place and seeded life on earth and became the legends of our gods. All of that shit is very, very possible to me. I keep an open mind to that. So when he talks about these same people, maybe they're the same ones that came from the skies long ago, they have a different DNA. We can get into the whole DNA and what junk DNA is, and whether it's not junk DNA, but something else, and whether there's a certain bloodline. And as he goes on, and this is just scratching the surface, and we've come a long ways in 20-something years since this book's been written on DNA understanding. So maybe the book will be a little rudimentary. We'll see. I don't think it's going to be that bad. So it has been described to me by insiders as a DNA corruption. The differences in the DNA are tiny, but highly significant. In fact, in DNA terms, there's not much that makes difference between humans and mice. But look at how, at the fantastic difference in how they manifest and what they can do. So, yes, most life on Earth has a crap ton of DNA that is the same. Very little differentiates one species from another, and even less differentiates one color from another, or one hair color or eye color or skin color. It's very, 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 very small what differentiates one hair color, eye color, skin color from another. But yet those differences can make a world of difference on who's closer to the God's bloodline. When you look back through history, you will find the theme of the divine right of kings and queens. What is that? It's the right to rule because of your bloodline, your DNA. I was born to be your leader. You think that's crazy? Hear us out in the book as we discuss it. These bloodlines are not human in the sense that we perceive the term human. And again, this is where David Icke starts to lose people, because he'll suggest that the DNA that's in certain bloodlines is not entirely human. Oh my God, that's fucking crazy. Try to pocket your emotions for a minute, because even if you don't want to go down the DNA, and I get it, David Icke loses a lot of people on shape-shifting lizards. I fucking get it. But try, because there's so much more. It's the occult rituals, the secret societies, the control groups, the symbols and what they mean to them. Whether you believe it's real or not, somebody thinks it is real. So let's pay attention to the people who think it is real. And not Israel, but is real. Anyways, this rule by bloodline still openly exists today, of course, with Queen Elizabeth II. And again, this was written before Queen Elizabeth died. So there you have it, showing its age. An obvious example, she only lives in the Buckingham Palace and enjoys all the power and privilege of a head of state because of her DNA. If she had a different DNA, she might be cleaning the throne rather than sitting on it. And yes, Consider for a moment, nothing special about a monarchy. They were born into a family that family is expected to produce an heir, and they continue. It doesn't mean they're good. It doesn't mean they're good people. It doesn't mean anything. It does mean they come from a good bloodline. Yes, it comes from a good bloodline. And that's what he's going to talk about. It's about protecting the pure blood, keeping it as pure as possible. As the ancient records confirm, it was the royal bloodlines, the demigods, that were placed in positions of ruling royal power thousands of years ago. And that's the thing. Stories of the ancients talk about gods intermingling with human beings and creating a race of god-like human hybrids, crazy as it might sound. Whether or not you believe that is real, if people think that it's real and believe in tracing the bloodline back to the closest you can get to the god's bloodline, it doesn't matter whether it's real or not. If you can see the evidence in what they're doing, then they take it serious. And if they take it serious, you probably should start taking it a little bit more serious than you have. They were the kings and queens in Egypt, Sumer, the Indus Valley, and around the world who claimed the divine right to rule because of their bloodline. What people don't realize is that the political, business, banking, and media leaders are also overwhelmingly operating within the similar DNA hierarchy that decides who does what. This is because they are all of the same bloodlines as the ancient royal and aristocratic families who ruled thousands of years ago. So that's what we have to ask ourselves. Is David Icke correct? Are there an unusually large number of people in power across the globe that come from a relatively small number of families? And if that's true, what the fuck's going on there? Fantastic cataclysms struck the earth around 11,500 to 12,000 years ago. And oh my God, would I love to talk to you more about the cycle of cataclysms that hit the earth every 11,500 years or so, or maybe a 26,000 year cycle. Holy shit, stuff we can't get into today. Like this book says, the reason these topics are so hard to cover is there's so much to impart, so much. Things to think about. Whether you agree with the ultimate conclusion or not is not what matters. What matters is you to take it seriously long enough to go, that's a piece I never really thought of before. I'll file that in the memory bank. That's all you need to do. File it in the memory bank and go, oh, that's one more data piece that sounds a little weird now, but I'll wait till I see more. Shit, there's some more. That's how it works. These destroyed in stages vast continents in the Atlantic and Pacific, these cataclysms. So there's cataclysms that destroyed previous civilizations and continents, like the lost continent of Atlantis. There you go, Atlantis. I'm reading it and I'm saying it, so it's screwing me up. The lost island continent of Atlantis. Think it's real? Think it's not real? Well, people think it's real. It's written about. Societies still talk about it. They write writings about it. So whether or not you think it really happened or not, one should maybe pay attention because somebody thinks it did. So anyways, these cataclysms from 11,000, 12,000 years ago destroyed continents like the Atlantic and the Pacific and have become known as Atlantis and Mu, and Lemuria. And oh my God, I got books on the shelf over here about Atlantis and Lemuria. The universal stories of the Great Flood from the Bible and from other cultures, not just the Bible, other cultures talk about the Great Flood. Something happened, and all civilizations kind of record it in different ways with different legends, but something happened. They believe it, you should believe it. After these literally world-shattering events and others that followed, the divine bloodline installed itself again in various locations. So while Atlantis, the lost continent or city of Atlantis, may have existed as a power structure, when that island sank or that continent sank, did some of the peoples survive and reform themselves to be the heads of other continents and other populations? We'll get into that a little bit as well. This happened most significantly in the Near and Middle East, especially around 4000 BC, with an empire based in Sumer in what is now called Iraq. and it was located between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This is the area that the Bible is associated with. Our Western Christian Bibles are all associated with the Near East, and that area. Civilization is said to rise out of Sumer, the Babylonians, all that shit. And I have a million things to talk about with religion because I've been a lifelong student of religion. But again, we can't get it all out in one video. So we'll take this in bite-sized chunks and we'll work through it together and see what you guys think. Sumer, according to official history, was the start of human civilization as we know it. But in fact, it was merely the restart after Atlantis Mu upheavals. So the author is going to suggest that he believes, while we currently believe that civilization as we know it, not all human beings, but civilization, when we began to form cities and write laws, that happened in Sumer in the Near East, the Sumerians. That's what historians will tell you. Civilization arose out of the Near East, the Sumerians. But he's going to argue, no, we had civilizations and cities and laws and codes in Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, but they've been destroyed and the same gods, bloodlines, repopulated. And is that not, in essence, somewhat the story of the Bible? God got so angry at humanity that he wiped out the entire population via a flood. And then one royal family, if you will, Moses and his family, gets to repopulate and seed the earth. Same kind of concept. The bloodline was placed in the positions of royal and administrative power over the people in Sumer, Egypt, Babylon, the Indus Valley, and much further afield, including the Americas and China. Over thousands of years, these bloodlines expanded out of the Middle and Near East into Europe, and the royal bloodlines of Sumer, Egypt, etc., became the royal and aristocratic families of Britain, Ireland, and the countries of mainland Europe, especially in France, Germany, and what is now called Belgium. So he's arguing that all countries eventually get infected by this same royal bloodline that just spreads out, starts more countries or takes over other countries, and it's all coming from the same bloodline. Crazy? We'll see. Wherever they went, these royal and aristocratic lines interbred obsessively with each other through arranged marriages and secret breeding programs. And look, Hitler wanted to breed the pure blood together. He wanted to return to the pure blood. That's what that was all about. These people believe arranged marriages, keeping the bloodline pure, being really pissed off when you taint the bloodline, when you corrupt the bloodline. So again, whether you believe it's real or not, you should take it serious. You can see the same with the ruling families today because they're seeking to perpetuate a particular genetic code, the DNA corruption that can be quickly diluted by breeding outside of their bloodline circle. The bloodline empires. In ancient times, Babylon, and again, the Bible's full of stories about Babylon. The only other city mentioned as much as, Jerusalem is Babylon. Jerusalem, the city of God's people. Babylon, the city of everything that's anti-God and against God, if you will. So those two cities are juxtapositioned in the Bible. Babylon, representative of everything anti-God. Jerusalem, the city of God and his people. In ancient times, Babylon was one of the headquarters of the secret society network, the Illuminati. Now, that could be hard. That can be a stretch. The Illuminati, does it technically go back to ancient Babylon? Not technically, because the name Illuminati and the official formation of the actual group known as the Illuminati was well after the Babylonians. But he's saying it's the same group. It's just been renamed. The Illuminati, through which these bloodlines manipulate humanity. Babylon was in the same region as Sumer. This Illuminati bloodline network then moved its headquarters to Rome, and it was during that time that we had the Roman Empire and the creation of the Roman Church, or the institutionalized Christianity. So the bloodlines of ancient Babylon, the corrupt city against God, became the rulers of the Roman Empire and the Roman Catholic Church and formed Christianity, according to, and I will say that is more in my belief system than not, but so deep. And I don't want to get into religion and I don't want to get into spirituality too much right now, but maybe over time, as you get to know me, we'll delve into these a lot more. Like I'm reading the Book of Enoch series. Book of Enoch, a book banned by the church. I cover that on another book series. The headquarters eventually moved on again into Northern Europe after the fall of the Roman Empire, and for a period it was based in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. This was when the Dutch began to build their empire through the Dutch East India Company, and they settled South Africa. In 1688, William of Orange, one of the Bloodlines, invaded England from the Netherlands and took the throne as William III in 1689. William ruled jointly with Queen Mary and then by himself after her death in 1694. In that year, William signed the charter that created the Bank of England, and the global banking system began to emerge. Banking and manufactured debt has always been one of the key vehicles used by the Bloodlines to control humanity. And so, yes, here you go with the allegations of racism. Oh, it's the bankers. The bankers own everything. And that quickly turns into, well, most bankers are of a certain lineage, and therefore you racist son of a bitch. You just hate that race. Put that shit aside. Just listen. Listen, as I say on my other channel all the time. Listen. Put your quit jumping ahead. Oh, are you trying to say all so-and-so races are bad because they own the banking system? Listen to the argument before you start shitting on it. Because again, your mind is controlled by those in control to make you shut down the argument before you start using your brain. From this time, the Bloodlines and their Illuminati secret society network moved their center of operation to London. And what followed, of course, was the great and enormous British Empire. So he's saying these people, you can track the movements of these people, and the rise of major empires is always the same bloodline. And America, same people came over from that. Same bloodline, founded a new empire, the American Empire. This was not in truth the empire of the British, but that of the Illuminati bloodlines based in Britain. So he's saying, look, you can call it whatever you want. It's the same bloodlines. And he's got this little footnote on this picture. Wherever they went, the Illuminati bloodlines invariably ruled as kings, queens, and nobility. And you can see a picture here of how the travels happened from Summer and how it spread across the known civilized world. When the European empires began to recede and collapse, especially in the 20th century, it appeared that these colony continents, like the Americas, Africa, Asia, and Australasia, what the fuck? Australasia. There you go. That's a word I haven't used in fucking forever. Had won their independence. Instead, so it looks like they won their independence. We were to believe they started whole new countries. Instead, the Illuminati bloodlines were merely exchanging open control for a far more effective covert control, manipulation of events by the hidden hand that the public has no idea even exists. So the idea is when you think a country is breaking away and forming its independence, it's formed by the same people, but it's giving you the illusion that you somehow are different. It's the same people. It's the same control structure, as David Icke would say, but you've got the illusion of feeling, oh, we're different. We're going to do things differently. It's the same people. Ever since that time, they have continued to control events in these former colonies as part of a long-planned agenda to impose centralized control of the planet and its people. This is designed to be structured as a world government, army, central bank, and currency, a microchipped population connected to a global computer, and society based on constant and total surveillance of every man, woman, and child. And oh my God, I could go on and on about actual open government programs that tell you we want total information awareness. We want to know everything that's happening in everyone's life across the globe, and that is our goal. Our goal, our ultimate mission is total information awareness. We want to know all things about all people. And guess what? Knowledge is power. If you know all things about all people, you can control everyone. And that's the goal of these open stated goal of government groups. We are seeing unfolded by the day the very big brother society described by George Orwell in his famous book, 1984. I believe that Orwell was not writing from his imagination so much as from insider knowledge of an agenda. And this is the very governmental structure that is now staring us in the face, especially since September 11th. So George Orwell's 1984, if you know anything about the book, you know they've got all these the Ministry of Peace, which is actually the Ministry of War, and so on. It's got all these double speak, and that's what he's going to tell us about now. Diversity is the controller's nightmare, and they have worked constantly to centralize decision-making and increase their power. The more you centralize power, the more power you have to centralize even quicker. So that's why the idea goes, the few elite families want one world currency, one world government, one leader over the entire planet, because then all orders can be carried out by one or two, a very small number of people. Small families can control the entire planet if all of us use the same banking system, same military, same code of laws, same leader. So the ultimate goal is the new world order, when everything is under the power and control of those divinely appointed to lead you because of their blood. The bloodlines that seek to control the world and our lives today are the same bloodlines that ruled ancient societies. They are the presidents of the United States, the prime ministers, the leading banking and business families, the media owners, and those who control the military. Now, here's a crazy thought. I'm watching the time. We're going to wrap up in 15 minutes or so. We're going to wrap up. There are some 300 million people in the United States today, and many hundreds of millions more have lived in that country since the major Freemason George Washington was inaugurated more than 200 years ago. Over 300 people. There's 350 million, 400 million people in the U.S. now. 350 last I remember the number, but it's been a while. And so he's going to talk about, you would think, with a country that believes in diversification, immigration, bring all your immigrants, you're poor, you're hungry, bring them to our shores. We're a nation that includes all people. If there was so much inclusion, wouldn't you see that in our leaders? So, not only that, the genetic diversity of the American people has been enormous because of the many locations from which they have come. So you would expect that the 43 presidents from Washington to George W. Bush, again, at the time of this writing of this book, would express some of that diversity. Surely, after all, one of the mantras supporting the myth of American freedom, is that anyone can become president of the United States. Sorry. The genetic diversity of U.S. presidents is incredibly limited and fundamentally connected to European royal and aristocratic bloodlines. And he's got this documented in The Biggest Secret and The Children of the Matrix. I recommend you get those books if you're fascinated by the bloodline thing, because he's touching on the bloodlines here, but there's much more detail in those books. Of the 43 presidents, again, at the time of this writing, 34 of those 43 go back genetically to Charlemagne, 742 to 814, the most famous monarch of what we now call France, and a major figure in the Illuminati story and the bloodline. He was the leader of the Franks, after whom we got the name France, and emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. From the Illuminati point of view, he was serious bloodline. Remember, he talked about how these bloodlines formed the Holy Roman Empire, and the leaders just keep shifting, and that's where 34 of 43 presidents come from that bloodline. In the last weeks of the farcical 2000 U.S. presidential election campaign, Burke's Perigee, the blue blood Bible of royal and aristocratic genealogy, confirmed the theme that I'm highlighting here. So this guy, Burke's I don't know how to pronounce that word, bloodline. He writes a book about the bloodlines, and this guy chronicles bloodlines. According to him, 4 years earlier, when Bill Clinton faced Bob Dole, Burke's book said that the candidate with the most royal genes had won every single presidential election in U.S. history. He claimed in his book, every single presidential election in U.S. history, the person who had the most royal genes is the one who won. Clinton and George Bush have since continued that sequence. At the very least, the vast majority of U.S. so he's saying, look, there are some exceptions, but at the very least, the vast majority of U.S. presidents have been of royal and aristocratic blood. In a Reuters report of October 17th, 2000, Burks confirmed that both George W. Bush and his opponent Al Gore were of royal descent, with Bush the bluer of the two. So Bush had the more pure blood of the two candidates, Bush and Al Gore. Purely knowing his bloodline and watching the behind the scenes developments, I was able to predict 3 years before 2000 election that George W. Bush would be the next president of the United States. And then we'll maybe finish up with, we're getting close to watching time, so I'm going to finish. I'm looking for a breaking point because I've read ahead of this, but I'm looking for a breaking point. Bush is related to every European. Bush is related to every European monarch on and off the throne, including the King of Albania and his kinship, with every member of the British royal family, the report said. He is a 13th cousin of Britain's Queen Mother. He died in 2002 at the age of 101, and her daughter, Queen Elizabeth. Bush is 13th cousin once removed of the heir to the throne of Prince Charles, and has a direct descent from Henry III and from Henry VIII's sister, Mary Tudor, who was also the wife of Louis XI of France. Bush is further descended from Charles II of England. Harold Brooks Baker, publishing director of Brooks Pegasus, said in the Reuters report, "It is now clear that Mr. Gore and Mr. Bush have an unusually large number of royal and noble descendants, but only unusual if you don't know the story," he added. In point of fact, never in the history of the United States have two presidential candidates been as well endowed with royal alliances. Brooks Baker said there had always been a significant royal factor in those who aspire to the White House, with Presidents George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Franklin and Theodore Roosevelt, and Ronald Reagan, among others, all boasting blue-blooded links. He said that Al Gore, a cousin of former President Richard Nixon, was a descendant of England's Edward I and had direct links to the Holy Roman Empire through Emperors Louis II and Charles II and Louis I. This, therefore, makes him a descendant of Charlemagne, the 8th century emperor. These Charlemagne links make Al Gore a cousin of George W. Bush. So look, you've got two guys from the same bloodline competing against each other. Is he overstating it? Is this just a simple matter of if you take any two people on Earth and work far enough up the genetic tree, you're going to find a common ancestor? Because there's that belief, right? Especially if you believe in the Bible and that all of us either came from Adam and Eve or came from Noah after the flood. Because, right, that's how population restarted. So everybody's got a common ancestor somewhere. So is it just a matter of that, or is there something more going on? And then we're going to touch on the secret language of symbolism, and it's quite lengthy. So actually, I think I'm going to hold the symbolism to start a different one. So I'm going to start a different chapter on the symbolism, because that's a great place to start, because this was about bloodlines. And in fact, I made the thumbnail about bloodlines. We'll get into some of the symbolism of the elite coming up next. And I have much, much to say about that. So I hope that you enjoyed this, what I would call a deep dive into the book. It's like a book discussion. Not really a book review, because I'm doing much more than reviewing it. I'm discussing it. I'll give you my extra points, my extra thoughts. Let me know in the comments if you're familiar with the works of David Icke, if you think he's a complete nutbag, if maybe something you heard is making you think twice about it. Because look, a lot of people have already been told David Icke is a nut. He believes in shape-shifting lizards, and nobody read his books. So maybe now that you've seen his book, if you stayed with me long enough, you're like, wait a minute. I thought that guy was a complete nutbag. I'm curious to see where he goes with it. That's all I want from you today, is be curious to see where he goes with it. Oh, and also I'd like you to like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so, and make sure that you follow this series, and let me know in the comments that you are watching the series so I know it's worth my breath to do so. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one.